Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I'm a Western astrologer and Twin Flame channel. And this is a video about the Virgo full moon taking place on Pi Day, 3/14/25 at 2:59 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, definitely check that energy as it is also a lunar eclipse. It takes place up here at the 23rd degree of Virgo. And it has a conjunction to the South Node, a connection to Neptune, Saturn, and Nessus by opposition, all three of those. Also, we have a square to Jupiter, and we've got a sextile to Mars. And a lovely little sextile to our friend Vesta there. I'm going to get into all of that in a moment, but I wanted to wish you all a happy eclipse and Venus retrograde. Venus retrograde is underway. And as part of the season, I have opened up relationship readings for the collective, which are synastry readings. I look at your chart, the other person's chart, and something I call the chart of the union, which is the day you and that person met. And I take a look at what's the energy between the two of you, answer your questions about your compatibility, where it's headed, why they do what they do, why you do what you do, and if it can ever work out, how and when. All of those questions I answer inside a relationship or synastry reading. You can book one of those at the link below. I'll warn you, members of the private list and my communities have already booked out most of March. There's probably one hour session left in March. Everything else is in April. If you like to know things early and you don't like to wait, I strongly recommend you get on the private list. The link to do that is below this video. I do email at the new and the full moon to let you know when these videos are live as well, but you also get preferred pricing, special savings, and special invitations from me by being a member of the private list. And when I have last minute things available, you tend to be the first to know. That being said, um, it is eclipse season, and there is an eclipse video that lays out all of the eclipses on the Virgo Pisces axis linked below so you can track how this eclipse will impact the collective. And if you'd like to know how they're going to impact you personally, pay attention to the Virgo Pisces houses in your chart. And if you need any help interpreting it, you know where to find me. Link to book a personal reading is below this video. Super exciting period of time of growth, transformation, and change. As I mentioned, our full moon takes place at the 23rd degree of mutable sign Virgo. And this is definitely a moment of change. I'm going to open this out a little bit over here on the left so you can see. I'm also going to get rid of those drawings. I don't often talk about it, but there are each sign has an element. We're all familiar with fire, earth, air, and water, but each sign is also a mode as well. I like to define the elements as ways we process life. So, element processes life through the emotions, fire element processes it through spirit and action, earth through the body or the third dimension, air through the mind and communication. But the modes are the way that after we've processed it, they're the way that we respond. And we have three modes: cardinal, fixed, and mutable. And when the planets stack up in one of these modes, it lets us know that as a collective, we're going to be responding to the way the energy stimulates us in a cardinal way by starting something new, in a fixed way by sustaining what we have, or in a mutable way by bending and flexing a little of the new, a little of the old, finding a flexible way forward. You'll see at this time in the modes, we have a lot of cardinality and a lot of mutability and very little fixed energy. This is going to serve those of us who have struggled with change. When so many planets stack up in cardinal and stack up in mutable signs, it is almost like a lever lifting our tires out of a rut so that we can get our wheels turning on solid ground again. And it gives us a lot of energetic stimulation to, as I mentioned, start new things and be flexible about getting things moving forward with high mutability, high cardinality. This particular eclipse takes place here, 23rd degree of Virgo, as I mentioned. And Virgo energy is all about the energy of service. It is also the energy of dedication. It is the energy of details, discernment, and decision making, prioritization, sequencing, strategizing, and planning. And so Virgo energy gives us the capacity to understand things like right time, right pace, right sequence when it comes to our movement forward. Now, what's interesting about this is that by opposition, this particular full moon lunar eclipse receives activation from Nessus and Saturn, who are conjunct in Pisces, as well as Neptune. Saturn loves to create integrity, structural wholeness, completion, but it does that by cutting off and removing anything that compromises that wholeness and completion. Once it's removed, the crazy thing is Neptune, right here in the mix, right after, will wash it out to sea, will dissolve, erase, and dilute it so that it can no longer be a part of our world. So, closures happening at this time are closures that are structured for the benefit of us coming into some format of wholeness, and because it's the right time, the right sequence, the right order for right now. Doesn't mean it's going to stay closed forever, but it is the right thing for right now so that wholeness can be restructured and restored in our world. This tag team of Saturn and Neptune will be with us through the middle of this year together, working on restoring structural integrity by cutting off things that undermine it in our lives, and then washing those things away, giving us the opportunity for forgiveness, release, and a clean slate. For the combination of these two to be speaking so significantly to an eclipse at this time lets us know that the things unfolding at this eclipse have great consequence, have likely been in store for us in a long time coming, much needed releases and closures that help us step into greater wholeness, greater integrity by breaking pathways with anything that would stop us from being that. So, this could be a number of things for a number of people because Virgo represents our well being and our physical health as well. These are the types of things where you see the completion of a very long struggle with chemotherapy or something of that nature, like a health regimen or treatment plan. And now you're ready to move off of that health regimen and treatment plan and into a new type of life, ending of a service agreement or a contract or a way of showing up, volunteering, or being of service to others, either formally or informally, such as I have a volunteer job or I just give people a ride all the time. The conclusion of these sorts of tacit and formal agreements, we will see some of these things now. because Virgo also governs detail and junior and senior positions to you at work. You will see roles at work changing and shifting so that all people can be in their correct places. You may even find that as your role changes and shifts at your place of employment, you get some clarity. This might not be the correct place of employment for me going forward. It's time to start looking for something that allows me to be more whole, more me in the process. We also know that because Virgo deals with dedication and follow through, it's a type of commitment. There can be commitments that resolve and dissolve at this time as part of the process of the Venus retrograde, which is well underway here, revealing to us what it is we value and what it is we don't value, and revealing to us what and who values us and where it is we're ready to release the way we are being valued or not valued by those relationships. So, one of my astrology teachers, Nadia Shaw, likes to say that full moons, we have them once a month. They're closures, they're completions, they're culminations. But when you get a full moon that is also a lunar eclipse, it is a closure, a completion, and ending on steroids. Shout out to Nadia Shaw. That's great teaching on your behalf. We do see the energy of eclipses start as early as 60 to 90 days before the actual eclipse. That takes us back to roughly the middle of January. Some of you may have felt this energy dawning at that time. It peaks in the now time frame, if we were to consider this the 30 days before and the 30 days after the eclipse. Then we have that 60 days before and 60 days after. So then we're coming out to this would be April 14th and then May 14th. We can still get reverberations of this particular eclipse energy that late. Typically at that time, we see it right around the 30-day mark exactly. So look to April 12th, 13th, and 14th. Look to May 12th, 13th, and 14th. Likewise, you want to look back to February and March 12th, 13th, and 14th for ways in which this eclipse may have already been impacting you and could impact you going forward. Okay. There is an energy here of commitment to the completion of whatever needs to end, a resolve. And that's because Nessus has been conjunct Saturn. Saturn wants that integrity, but Nessus can get a little grippy, a little OCD, a bit clingy, forceful, mandating that Saturn's way gets had in the situation. Vesta's energy is out here as well, as I mentioned, in Scorpio. Scorpio specifically deals with closures and completion. Vesta's an asteroid that is to the sign of Virgo and its dedication as well, dedication energy as well. So we see asteroidal energy in the sign that deals with dedication in the sign that specifically deals with closure. This is definitely speaking to closure of contract, closure or completion of agreement, closure or completion of a service, or something that we may have been previously dedicated to. We see Uranus in the mix in opposition. For some, this closure, completion, ending could feel sudden. It's also divinely guided and led in the mix. Uranus represents that energy of divine intervention. And so for some of you, you could wake up during the time frame of this eclipse and just suddenly know there is something in your life you're done with. From one day to the next, you just don't feel the same. You're not invested the way you were. Much of it may have taken place at the subconscious level. Now, at this eclipse, it's happening consciously that you need to take action to move forward, and nothing is going to stop you now that Mars is complete in its retrograde activity making very instinctive movements here in the sign of Cancer, requiring our actions to be aligned with our true feelings. If this is the case, Jupiter here in Gemini is going to support you with some exploratory conversation and communication about the best way forward for all parties involved. But trying to go back to what it was will not be possible post this eclipse. If you'd like to better understand where and how this is happening in which area of life for you, thing to do is to book a reading. Your chart holds the keys for your personal pathway. If this is feeling too vague, you want more specifics and you can feel something changing, but you're not sure what and how, your chart will reveal those details. So, this is what we have here for this eclipse. Just checking my notes to see if I missed anything here. There's still a lot of activity as we walk into this eclipse in the sign of Pisces and in other water signs. So we have Vesta here in Scorpio. We've got Creation Goddess in Scorpio. We've got Mars in Cancer, and then in water sign Pisces, Nessus, Saturn, Sun, North Node, Neptune. Thank goodness Venus and Mercury are no longer in Pisces, but for those of you who are very sensitive to water energy, this may have had you feeling very emotional leading up to this eclipse. As the sun leaves Pisces and moves into Aries, you're going to feel a bit of relief as we get into the second half of this month. Past March 21st, you're going to be feeling a lot better. But whatever the emotions that did show up during this time period were, know that they were part of an important process of purge and release to allow you to move and shift energy that may have been stuck for a long time around letting go of the things that are exiting your life now. If you're the type of person that's very sensitive to collective energy, I'd like to remind you you can broadcast signal as well as receive. You do not have to be a victim to empathic waves of collective grief or release. If you would like to hold a higher frequency for the collective and transmit that, you can certainly use this energy to do that as well. The signs who are going to feel this particular eclipse most include, of course, Pisces and Virgo, as well as the rest in the mutable mode. That includes Gemini and Sagittarius, as well as fellow Earth sign Capricorn and Taurus. You would have felt this probably more than most, especially if you have sun, moon, rising, or stellium in the last 10 degrees of any of those signs just mentioned. Once again, I can walk you through all of this in your own chart. Elsewhere in the zodiac at this time, here we see Mercury at the 9th degree of Aries preparing to go retrograde and bring in some important messages from our personhood, our identity, our psyche, about who we are, how we've been showing up in the world, what we need to do more of, do less of, and where it is we can align our thinking with our actions and walk our talk. It's going to be a critical time of review for all of us collectively. Definitely, if you have any major plans or activities, specifically physical activities scheduled during this upcoming Mercury retrograde, which we'll see as we go well into April, just make sure you've double checked the time, the scheduling. If you are an athlete or do anything with your physical body professionally, double check all of your gear. Operate to the highest safety standards. Be extra gentle with your joints and with any parts of your body that need extra care. This is not the time to push your limits. It is the time to really take extra care that you're being physically safe during this Mercury retrograde. Okay, now let's talk about its conjunction here to Venus, who's also retrograde. The two of these being retrograde in fire sign Aries is going to open up a period of time of personal contemplation when it comes to the way other people are valuing us, the way we are valuing ourselves, what we value when it comes to our personal connections, and what we value with. This is going to be impactful not only in relationships, but also when it comes to work and our ambitions, and will give us a great opportunity to redefine our alliances with people, reset expectations, and to step into greater responsibility if we'd like to take that on, or put certain responsibilities down if we found the burden of it too heavy, and renegotiate the way we show up and what people expect from us. Extraordinary period of time to also have a look at what you're attracted to romantically and who's attracted to you. It's very interesting in the union workshop that I'm hosting right now. We're in week 6 of 10. And if you have questions about that, you're in the workshop, certainly you know where to find me. We've talked about that in the forum. But what I'll say here is that my co-host of the union workshop, she's my spiritual mentor, her name is Romania. She said something very profound in the forum a couple of weeks ago. She said, "Do you actually want love, or do you just want to know you're lovable?" And I thought that was a wonderfully apt headline for this particular Venus retrograde in Aries, moving back into Pisces. If you have been in the kind of romantic situationship where you're getting your lovability needs met, but you're not actually in love, this Venus retrograde in Pisces is going to reveal where the breakdown in that is for you, and it will extend as Saturn moves into Aries into the June timeframe, placing a demand on our wholeness and integrity. If you are in on the inverse side of that, where you are in love, but the other person isn't really demonstrating that they love you, just that they love the way you love them. Again, this Venus retrograde is going to be an eye opener. It's a really positive energy for helping us get into clarity and congruence about what we value, why we value it, what values us, and how we want to be valued. Great opportunity to start to reshape relationships based on some emerging reflections and truth that this Venus retrograde plus Mercury retrograde will show us. Mercury is still in shadow, but expect important communications and revelations to show themselves as we march forward toward the retrograde and have this important communication with Venus. We also see Mercury is sextile to Pluto, and Mercury is sextile to Jupiter here. The communication of both Jupiter and Pluto with Mercury in Aries at this time is going to be extremely empowering. There'll be a lot of depth of focus and concentration. It's an extraordinary time to have important talks, communication, and conversations with existing allies, partners, collaborators, and important alliances, personally and professionally, to think through the best ways to move forward together so that the situation is win, 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 as opposed to win, lose. For those of you who have been paying attention, I've certainly gotten questions about this in my sessions with clients, but if you've been paying attention to, these tariffs that are going on back and forth between my country and potentially your country, know that because these are being implemented at a time when Venus, who governs money, is retrograde, expect that they will not stay locked in, that there will be some level of fluctuation, some coming and some going, some up and some down, some writing of the rule, rewriting of the rule, and rewriting of the rewriting. Know that this is the case, but in the meantime, do what you need to do to financially shore up your circumstances in ways that empower you. That's the Plutonian piece, and expand your capacity for opportunities That's the Jupiter piece. Because both Jupiter and Pluto are in air signs, this is a great time for things, all things dealing with communication, all things dealing with contracts and reviewing of contracts with a fine-tooth comb, all things having to do with technology as well. I would be very careful during Mercury retrograde purchasing technology, but Mercury's not retrograde yet. But if you need to do that in order to create some security in your work from home business or in your business where you employ people, definitely get it done before these tariffs take place so that are in full effect so that you're getting the best pricing for it. Okay. We also see a trine from Mercury to Juno here, who's also preparing to go retrograde in the next week. So much fun. I think next 10 days, Juno will go retrograde and head back into Scorpio. Because she's in communication with Mercury, this only amplifies, and it's a trine energy, this amplifies the need for important conversations with key partners, alliances, and collaborators, professionally and personally, to take place now. Not a great time to open new conversations with new people, but to shore up foundations with existing partners, reset expectations, renegotiate contracts, revisit things that may you both thought you dealt with, but clearly there's still some loose ends. Revisit those conversations during this period of time to make sure both of you are on the same page about what the other person needs and making sure that it is a win-win situation. Okay. Juno's going to come in from Sagittarius, our sign that deals with truth, faith, hope, and optimism, on a positive note entering these conversations. Mercury in Aries is going to come in from a self-interested note. This is really going to serve those of you who normally enter negotiations and talks giving more than you receive on the other side. It's also going to serve those of you who enter negotiations and talk and always leave with 51% while the other one's stuck with 49. It's going to serve you to be more open-minded and really listen for ways in which you can structure a deal that works better for the other party and ultimately serves you better in the end as well. Okay. Now, because this is all taking place during an eclipse, we can expect that certain partnerships are going to open, others are going to close at this time. Certainly, chapters and seasons of relationships that are meant to continue are going to continue in a new way, a new chapter. We won't be going back to what it previously was and how things previously looked. So expect that, just because it's broken up doesn't mean it's going to stay broken up, but it won't go back to what it was if it does get back together. It's going to become something new, something completely different. And that's going to be a reflection of both people and their growth through these cycles, coming into the connection and to the communication, wanting to express that newness in the dance of partnership. So be open-minded as much as possible about that, because this is going to serve both people long term. It does look like there are some very important conversations that need to happen in order for that to take place. We also see Mercury having a square to Mars at this time. This particular square, plus the influence of Pluto on Mercury, I gotta say, words are going to come out very and move very quickly. There's going to be a lot of depth here, and in some cases, words are going to come out before thoughtfulness happens. It's okay, it's a retrograde. Give yourself the opportunity to check or revise things you said as you go through this retrograde this month and early April. If the way you said it isn't the way you meant it, but I want to remind us all to be very cautious, because while we can always apologize for what was said, we can't always take away the way it made a person feel. Think words can be amended, meaning can be amended, but things can't always be unheard. So if you know you're the kind of person who can have a sharp tongue, this is your in advance warning. Stay very mindful throughout this retrograde about the way you speak to people and speak to yourself. Okay. All good things here. That is Mercury as he prepares to step into retrograde. As I mentioned, we do have this Venus retrograde conjunct that Mercury. Venus is also sextile Jupiter. This is going to open up a real congenialness and open-mindedness and open-heartedness, a curiosity, a copaceticness between people where there's just a real willingness to harmonize with other people. For those of you who know you bend a little too much in harmony, definitely utilize the Saturnian energy to lean into your lessons around that and not overgive. For those of you who know you can steamroll, on the flip side, utilize this energy to know that you're in the right place to be more considerate of other people. And if you know you need to have an important conversation with someone, let's say you want to retain an employee who looks unhappy with one foot out the door, now's the time to have the kind of conversations about what they need in a way that will allow you to keep your cool if you're leaning into this advice. We also see Venus sextiling Pluto and Aquarius. Venus retrograde in this conversation with Pluto is opening up passionate, deep, very physically intimate and stimulating connections and like communications and operations. So those of you who like to participate in what the kids call sexting, I definitely see some of that could be happening here. Lots of very steamy, juicy messages. But in addition to that, there's also liaisons and meetups in person that I am being shown with this energy can take place. And you want to make sure, because it is this sextile, we're talking about Pluto. You want to make sure that things are as above board as possible. You don't want to operate in stealth or in secret, that because it does look like it, as Uranus clocks into Gemini and then makes communication with Pluto in June, secrets do seem to come out that we weren't expecting to, and in a not like exposed in a small way. I'm talking about exposed capital E. So just be very mindful of anything you enact at this time with Venus in communication with Pluto. Pluto also in communication with Juno there. This combination speaks a lot to secret affairs, secret liaisons, secret alliances, these sorts of things. And if you already know that a secret getting exposed at the wrong way at the wrong time could be very hurtful to you and people you care about or organizations you're invested in, now's the time to utilize this energy to clean this up. Okay, Pluto deals with secrets. Speaking with Venus and speaking with Juno, we're talking about partnerships and alliances. So it's a heavy theme during Juno retrograde and the Venus retrograde to not let ourselves get caught up in situations that can ultimately undermine the very things we're trying to achieve in them. Okay. We also see that Venus in communication with Pholus in Capricorn. Again, I spoke about this at the last lunar update. The option to get re-wrapped up in our own toxicity is there. And I just define toxicity as knowing something doesn't work and then insisting on doing it anyway. option to do that is certainly here. There's also the option and the opportunity to recognize the toxicity for what it is and step out of that structure, make some new actions, take some new choices so that we're able to jump onto a new timeline through the timeline opening that this eclipse creates for us. Okay. Ultimately, this will open the pathway to stronger connections. It's also going to make toxic connections uncomfortable to stay in. It's also going to make strong attractions and chemistry unignorable. We'll have lots of clarity through this eclipse period about where we want to be, what and who we're drawn to, what we value, and what we don't. Truly like a values recalibration moment collectively for us. Lastly, we see Jupiter in Gemini here. It is square to the Saturn Nessus configuration and has been since the middle of 2024. So wonderful energy for cleaning up indulgences, addictions, excess in our life. We get both the motivation and the open-mindedness and the willingness and curiosity to try something new while simultaneously getting the ick and being really grossed out by and fed up by patterns that are not serving us in the arena of excess, indulgence, addiction, things that haven't worked for us in those areas. So, whether your vice is video games or overworking, being a workaholic, or any substance or behavior in between, this energy is one of the best energies for finding resources, tools, and support for sobriety, getting out of things like social media addiction, for example. Great time to work on that. Find a mentor, resource, or group to support you with that. This energy remains with us through the middle of this year, and then it begins to wane. So if you know you have any of those challenges, please, please, please utilize this energy to find your way to resources, because this is a period of time where if you've tried getting sober before and it didn't work, this is a period of time where it can totally work for you. We also see a sextile for Jupiter to from Pluto here, and this energy opens up lots of like potent, powerful energies of connection, communication, opportunity, life-changing opportunities can show itself here. Our power and capacity to get things done, get things moving, move things forward in correct directions for us is going to be really, really, really high. And so if you're feeling like you're burning a bit of this midnight oil sort of energy, you've just got to go, 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 get things done. There will be a period of time when rest will become organic, natural, and easy for you. Right now, this is a period of time for push. All things in season, in balance. Trust it if you're feeling the need to push with this energy. I know I am. There's a lot of energy for achievement, execution, accomplishment, and getting things done in the third dimension that need our attention. And that's perfect with so much cardinal energy in the air and mutable energy in the air. It really is a time where our efforts will be greatly rewarded. Okay. Jupiter is also in a square, as I mentioned, to this full moon, and this opens up a T square where there's no occupation in the mid degrees of Sagittarius. If we lean into this with our light body, it balances out some of the tension that comes with this eclipse. What is Sagittarius about? Faith, hope, optimism, truth. Where you are recognizing there are some uncomfortable truths to face in your life, in any area, this eclipse is going to help you not only face them, but invite you into doing something about them in a constructive way with faith, with hope, with optimism, that taking proactive action is going to serve you in the long run more than waiting for something to change. And so this is a great energy if you know there's something that needs to shift in a relationship, in your finances, in your academic work, in your professional life. If you know there's something that needs to shift, now's the time to take that proactive action. So a lot of support here from the stars to step into a new timeline, a new reality by letting go that which undermines us. And this is only further exemplified by the trine that we get to Chariclo in Aquarius for Jupiter. This brings blessings on all of our new steps forward. Chariclo is an energy of divine intervention and blessing. And we also see, that's it. Okay, that's it. Power in making new decisions with all of this. So I love this for us. The stars are working overtime to get us on a higher timeline. The question we need to answer for ourselves are we ready for it? We've asked for it, we've envisioned it, we've prayed about it. We thought, wouldn't it be nice if the stars are doing their part? We have to be ready and willing to let go of what we know in order to have what it is that we know is truly ours. All of that said, if you could use any support, navigating these things, it is now's the perfect time to book a reading. There's one more session left in March. April is open. And because the relationship readings are open, I do anticipate it's going to continue to book fairly quickly. So I strongly recommend that if you're an Aries or a Pisces and you'd like that year ahead look, book now. If you've got a relationship change and transition, you could use some support understanding how to navigate, book now. Link to do that is below this video. Last energy that I see here is Juno opposite Uranus, and this is going to be an energy that's with us that kicks off the Juno retrograde in Scorpio. Juno is a higher octave here of Venus. Juno, where Venus is love and connection and chemistry, Juno is commitment, she's contract, she's marital bond. And so, with Juno in opposition to Venus, some of the same shakeups that Venus in opposition to Uranus, some of those same shakeups can show themselves, but at an even deeper level. When Juno opposes Uranus, there is an energy of divine shakeup happening in partnerships, collaborations, romantic and professional. Unexpected, unforeseen changes in these arenas can show themselves that can be unsettling at first, but are ultimately meant to help us move forward. Uranus's energy wants to get us to the next highest level through taking quantum leaps, skipping steps, but that non-linear and non-sequential action can be difficult on the human mind. Because of this, any changes, any shakeups that take place during this particular period of time before Juno goes retrograde this month, and when Juno comes out of retrograde and out of shadow in October, the question we have to be willing to ask ourselves is, this may be uncomfortable, but how does this serve me? And be willing to look for clues and answers for the ways that this can serve you. These shakeups can support you in your connection going forward. Normally, I would say this is not the best time when Venus is speaking to Uranus in an aspect of tension. It would certainly apply to Juno speaking to Uranus. Not the best time for romantic surprises, things that come out of left field, like proposals or announcements to the family. I'm moving out and moving in with so and so who I've been dating for the last 5 years in secret, this sort of thing. These sorts of surprises and shocks can have unexpected, unintended consequences. Now, where the conversation has already been on the table, this would just be you taking the necessary steps to make the change. That is supported, but for it to come out of nowhere, You can get some unexpected, unanticipated results with Uranus in opposition to Juno making those kinds of changes at this time. And that's okay. Trust that if you need to do it at this time, that it is your time and the unanticipated, unexpected results are part of a greater cycle of learning, growth, and development for you that will also ultimately serve you. Okay, that's what I got. If you'd like to book, you know where to find me. Can't wait to chat with you. And I will see you at the All Signs for the Virgo full moon and lunar eclipse. Take great care and bye for now.